What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be starting our deep dive review into Ready Hour emergency food. So my goal with this video is to bring you guys a super detailed, in-depth review, and hopefully you guys can take any of the information in the video and decide for yourself whether or not this is something you should spend your hard-earned money on. So before we get too deep into this, I want to give you guys a quick disclaimer. We just brought home our second child from the hospital, so things have been crazy around here and I'm pretty pressed for time. Don't be surprised if I'm wearing a couple different outfits throughout the video, or if we end up in a couple different places like the garage or the shop or my truck. Alright, so Ready Hour is actually a product line of My Patriot Supply. Now, My Patriot Supply has been around since 2008. They are based out of Indiana. They had a food line prior to this. It was called Patriot Pantry. In 2019, the name was changed to Ready Hour, and it's been sold as that ever since. So on the Ready Hour website, they claim that it's American made. Unfortunately, we live in a world where companies use that as a marketing tool. There really are no set percentage standards that these companies have to meet in order to claim that. It simply has to be majority American made, and that goes for any company, not just Ready Hour. So I always kind of take that with a grain of salt when I see that. So Ready Hour does have a manufacturing facility / warehouse in Utah. However, there was a document I found brought up by a competing company a couple years ago that allegedly they were misusing the label American made, and Ready Hour ended up having to change some of their verbiage on some of their packaging because they do indeed use foreign ingredients in some of the meals. So when purchasing Ready Hour, you guys are going to have, for the most part, just three options. You're going to have the emergency bucket, the number 10 cans, or you can order, I believe there's 6 packs of the individual bags. There's kind of a wide price range when it comes to this stuff. As far as the buckets go, essentially the more you buy, the cheaper it is. Alright, so I'm not going to go through everything individually, but I am going to head over to the website and give you guys an idea of the different products that they sell, and you guys can see the prices on there as well. Okay, so right now we're taking a look at the number 10 cans that they have on their website. I'm going to scroll through this web page. You guys can see what they have for sale and how much they're charging for it. One thing that I should mention, most of the food you can get in either the number 10 cans or the Mylar, but I have seen a couple of items, like for example the freeze-dried raspberries. I think you can only get that in the number 10 cans, or at least that's what I've seen so far. Okay, so next we're going to take a look at the emergency buckets. And I mentioned earlier, the more you buy, the cheaper it becomes. Essentially, if you buy the 1-year food supply, you get 10% off, as opposed to buying a year's worth of the 2-week buckets, if that makes sense. You guys can just kind of see again here what they've all got to offer. The way that I like to look at this is, one bucket is 2 weeks per person. I know that you guys can see it says that right here. Sometimes they don't always have that on here. Sometimes they only have the 4-week emergency or the 3-month. That's the smallest one they offer. So there are times you can get this stuff on sale. This definitely isn't the cheapest I've ever seen it. So I just pay attention to like the holidays and whatnot. This stuff does go 10 to 15% off sometimes. Now you guys will see on here, it says 2,000 plus calories a day. If it does go over that 2,000, it is a tiny amount. Pretty much all of these buckets are right at or very slightly above 28,000 calories, which is 14 days times 2,000. So 2 weeks worth per bucket again. And one more thing before we move on here. There are going to be people that need way more than 2,000 calories a day. 2,000 calories a day is kind of a baseline that they use as a general calorie consumption number. If I'm really working hard, I can burn up to 4,000 calories a day. So just because it says 2,000 plus calories a day. It doesn't mean that's going to be enough substance for you, depending on what you're doing. So if you guys watch this video, you get through the whole thing and you still decide that you want to buy some Ready Hour, I would definitely recommend either getting the number 10 cans or buying the case packs first. Don't jump into the buckets right away. Giving away a little foreshadowing here. Not super impressed with the stuff. So if you do decide to look into this stuff, don't jump into the buckets right away. Definitely buy the smaller cases first and see if it's something you want to spend even more money on. So personally, I believe if you guys do decide to buy this stuff, the case packs are probably the best place to start. That way you can kind of guarantee you get something that you like and you're storing something that you enjoy. The problem with the buckets is they tend to be really heavily stacked with the cheaper options. I'll get into more of this later, but like the bucket that I opened up, there were like one or two what I would consider good tasting or high quality meals, and the rest of it was all cheaper, either traveler, stew, or rice. So buying the case packs kind of ensures you're not paying a premium for rice, unless you want to go that route. That's your money. So before I leave the website here, I did want to touch on their warranty or the refund policy. As you guys see here, I will give Ready Hour credit in this department. I have had packages show up damaged, where the buckets were severely damaged, and they actually did send me new buckets, and they didn't even make me return the old ones. So when I did get bad product in the mail, they did cover it, no questions asked, and the new ones came super quick. Alright, so now that we've gotten through the boring part of the video, I'm going to start going through the pros and cons. I try to keep everything as fact-based as possible to try to minimize my opinion in this. Alright, so pro number 1, these buckets are easy to transport. If you'd ever have to flee your home for whatever reason, whether it be natural disaster or civil unrest, this is something that's very easy to just pick up, throw it in the back of your truck, and go. As I mentioned earlier in the video, there's 28,000 calories per bucket, so you've got a substantial amount of calories in a very portable package. Pro number 2 is convenience. These require no work on your end. This is something that you can very easily just buy online, have shipped to your home, and throw it in the back of your pantry for literally decades, and hopefully you never have to use it. So pro number 3 is shelf life. These buckets and the number 10 cans have a shelf life of 25 to 30 years when stored properly. You don't need to worry about rotating through your food nearly as often as you would with other shelf-stable types of food. Pro number 4 is variety. These buckets actually have a pretty decent variety of food inside them, so you're not going to be stuck eating the same meal over and over again. So that wraps up the pros list. Unfortunately for Ready Hour, the cons list is a little bit longer. So con number 1, the crazy markup. My number 1 complaint about this stuff is the insane markup that is on all the food. This stuff costs 200 to 300% more than what it would cost you to do it on your own. A lot of this stuff isn't freeze dried. You don't need a freeze dryer. You can package a lot of this stuff up yourself with a $20 flat iron. The vast majority of food in these buckets is stuff like rice, oatmeal, and stuff similar to mac and cheese. So con number 2 is it's almost all carbs. Pretty much everything in here is a highly processed carbs. They're a poor source of fuel, and you're paying, again, a huge premium for it. There was no meat in any of the meals that I made, again, because it's not freeze-dried. It's basically, a lot of it, rice and mac and cheese. In addition to that, a lot of it was bland. There were 1 or 2 of them that were pretty decent, but for the most part, the rest of them, I wouldn't call them enjoyable. For con number 3, I kind of combined 2 into 1 here. I'm calling this one cooking/water consumption. It takes a lot of water to cook these meals. Sometimes it was more than a gallon, and if you're on the move, it's really inconvenient. You have to have a pot on you or some sort of water vessel, boil water. I mean, it takes a half hour or longer in a lot of cases. And since this stuff isn't freeze dried and does require actual cooking, you can't cook it in the bag. You need to have a large pot of boiling water to cook most of it. Con number 4 is durability. The buckets break easily. I've had more than one bucket break on me just sitting in storage. These buckets are supposed to be stackable. I've never had them stacked more than 2 high, and I've had the buckets on the bottom layer break just from the weight of the one above it. The lids crack. I've also had multiple buckets show up damaged during delivery, and I understand that that's probably not so much Ready Hour's fault, but it just kind of speaks to the durability of the buckets. You know, they were really good about warrantying them, and they did replace them for free. The problem is, though, you can't use a warranty in an emergency situation. If the buckets break on you, you're just kind of hosed. Con number 5 is additives. Every meal in here was chock full of additives and artificial ingredients. I'm sure I'll put some up on the screen, but every meal had just a ton of, in my opinion, unnecessary preservatives in there. There are a few companies out there that are doing it without those, so in my opinion, it's just a cheap way of doing it. I hear a ton of people making the argument of, well, you know, in an emergency situation, you're not going to care about the taste and you're not going to care about the preservatives. And there is some truth to that, but again, you're paying a premium for this. It's far cheaper to just build your own buckets. It's far healthier to build your own buckets. Personally, I just think that's the best route to go. To wrap this video up, I tried 8 of these meals total from Ready Hour, and overall, I was pretty disappointed. Again, you're paying a really high markup. It's almost all highly processed carbs. Most of them don't taste good, and the buckets aren't super durable. So emergency food buckets were one of the things I purchased early on in my prepping journey. It's one of those things I honestly regret. If I could go back and do things differently, I would. So hopefully this video prevents a few people from making the same mistake I did. If you watched the whole video and you still decided you don't want to listen to me, do yourself a favor. Start with the number 10 cans. Start with the small case packs first. Don't dive into the buckets. Hopefully this video helped some of you guys. I'll catch you later.